So, Chris, this week many people were suspecting that you would have fixed the bookshelf, but no, you've gone a level worse. You've got a beard. You look like absolute. And here we are. So, huge news this week. Absolutely huge news. There's a lot of speculation about a new model coming out maybe next week. Merch packs have arrived. Gemini 3 could be launching next week, and the internet is going absolutely wild. People are using, I think it's in AI Studio, you can basically go in and there's like an A-B test going on, a sneaky A-B test, where we believe they're getting access to Gemini 3. And what that has led people to do, for some reason, this is the new benchmark, they're benchmarking or one-shotting the ability to recreate the Mac OS X desktop experience or the Windows desktop experience in a single shot in like one clean HTML file. And this model is really delivering. Like, check this out. Like, for people that can't obviously see, because most people listen to the show, it looks fully like Mac OS X. I can open text files. I can open the web browser here, and I'm on the Wikipedia website. I can resize it and move it around. It's pretty phenomenal. And it even has the like bouncy ball effect at the bottom of the screen. There's a full-on terminal. So you can even do commands like ls to see the folders available. I don't know if I can go into them. Let's
try removing all files.
I can't do that. So there's a bit of a foul. I can change the background color, but anyway, it's pretty good. Here's another one, and this one is just a comparison to Gemini 2.5 Pro, because people have been getting really overly excited about this. And I thought, just as a bit of a reality check, someone also put out there another version. This version was done in Gemini 2.5 Pro, and I think,
still looks pretty nice.
It's still pretty amazing, right? Like, it's still really good. You can browse around and you can even open Python files in a code editor. I would sort of say functionality-wise, this one's better, but it might be to do with the prompt. But anyway, I think if this is an indication of the level of polish and detail and output that this model can deliver, assuming it's releasing next week, it's going to be a really exciting week. And I thought, given the speculation around it, maybe we could just put out our final Gemini 3 wish list quickly.
Gemini 2.5 is already pretty good. Like, it's kind of hard for me to think of what else you'd really want. I mean, I don't know, will they make it 2 million context window perhaps? Cheaper would be really nice. I think that's probably the biggest one for me. Make it cheaper.
I think the tool calling needs a lot of work, but I would say either we have improved it in sim theory, or they have been sneakily releasing like minor updates and not saying anything. But the simultaneous tool calling and like the agentic flow of the model could use a lot of work. Right now, I think it's truly a turn by turn, like a turn-based model, instead of having that feeling like a Claude Sonnet or the new Claude Haiku, which we'll get to in a minute, where it has that internal clock and it feels just agentic at its core.
Yeah, I agree. I think I tend to use Gemini more for coding, and I use Sonnet more for agentic stuff. So maybe just I'm naturally going that way for that reason, and Gemini 3 might fix that.
So anyway, we'll report back. Obviously, I'm assuming it's next week. That's what everyone's saying. But let's move on now to a brand new model, hot off the press. It only came out, I think, 8 hours ago now. Introducing Claude Haiku 4.5. And this is the younger sibling, of course, to Claude Sonnet 4.5, which was released, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago now. And so it's a smaller model. It's cheaper. We'll get to pricing in a minute. But in terms of where it sits, in terms of the software engineering benchmark they've got up here, it's somewhere between Sonnet 4 and Sonnet 4.5. So it seems to be weirdly performant. I mean, I never really trust benchmarks, but to say with agentic coding, it's on par with, say, like a GPT-5 or Gemini, like ahead of Gemini 2.5 is kind of crazy for the size, price, and speed.
I used it this morning quite extensively to actually debug MCPs live. So what I'll do is when I'm adding a new MCP, I'll actually, when there's an error, ask the model, hey, what was the error? And then I'll say, here's the code, here's your code. Can you just explain why this broke and fix it, please? And it was really competent at that, like really good. And then because I was working with MCPs, I get these really long requests of like testing every single tool in every single combination and give it to the model to do. And Haiku was able to handle that perfectly. And it's really fast as well. So it was quite refreshing and good to use.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't, as you say, had that long to play with it, so it's hard to know just yet. But I would say it like if you compare it, I think the closest comparable for me, not necessarily on price, but just on where it sort of sits in the food chain, would be Gemini 2.5 Flash, especially that newer tune of it. And I think that while it's a really good model, it seems to struggle sometimes in the feeling of intelligence. Like it seems really dumb sometimes. Whereas just in my limited tests with Claude Haiku 4.5, it never felt stupid to me. It never felt like a lesser model. In fact, I think it kind of makes me feel as though the performance and price gains of some of these models, when they come down, like things could be really good. Like if you can get you compare it to GPT-5, say, in terms of tool calling, and it's so much faster. It's like if you're working with MCPs, like why would you bother with GPT-5?
I agree. I think when you work with MCPs extensively, the speed is a massive factor. Like having to wait for every step to take so long just to get to the point where it's actually doing the work, it's not worth it. And when you're doing like operational things where context is everything and just calling the tools important, the speed is what actually makes you more productive over it being slightly more intelligent, but taking ages. Like the whole idea here is productivity gains with using these things. So speed actually does matter. It is actually as crucial as the other stuff, not to mention price. Like if you're working with huge amounts of data, you don't want to be constantly stressing about how many tokens you're using in doing it. And with this model, you don't have to stress at all.
So the pricing is not where I think it should be if they want to be really competitive, but it's still pretty good. So it's $1 per million input and $5 per million output tokens. So I think it does have that Anthropic Claude premium, like the Sonnet and Opus models. But I still think it's pretty reasonable for how performant it is. And I think naturally you do want to compare it to a Gemini Flash, but I mean these are sort of somewhat worlds apart in terms of cost now. So it's another really good option in the toolkit. And I think, as you say, for MCPs and agentic use cases, I don't see why you wouldn't use this over, like, say, Claude Sonnet 4.5.
The one downside I see is it doesn't have the beta 1 million context window that Sonnet has. So it's only 200,000 contexts. It does have 64,000 output, which is very high, but only 200,000 input. So that is one limitation that Gemini Flash doesn't have because it's 1 million, and Claude Sonnet doesn't have because it's 1 million. So depending on what you're doing, that may be a blocker for you, but if you can deal with that, it's worth it.
So my feeling, though, is it's just a more like optimized version of Claude Sonnet 4.5. Like that's what it feels like. I cannot tell the difference so far. So that's a pretty good sign. And for people who do use Sim Theory, we have made this available as non-frontier. So you can essentially use it as much as you like and it won't affect your token limits at all. So to have a model this good, I mean, essentially somewhat for free, is pretty mind-blowing. Now, I do want to talk also about its ability, because I think this is like the new benchmark, right? Its ability to one-shot a Mac OS style operating system. So I put it to the test. I said, make a Mac style operating system where I can open a Notepad app and draw in a Paint style app. And I just wanted to get a comparison here to if this is Gemini 3, if it really is indeed that, what would Haiku, a pretty cheap new model, do? And look, it's not as stylish, but it's still pretty good here. I've got it up on the screen. I can open my Notepad. I can take a note here. I can move the windows around. I've got my Paint application. I would actually say its Paint application better. So I don't know. I don't know if this sort of puts like, water on the flames of the hype around Gemini 3, because you can see like quite easily Haiku did this, and it did it, honestly.
It's not the best benchmark given that they can all just do it.
Yeah.
It's all, yep, no worries.
Well, I think people like to, like me, like look at the taste, the tune, and you can really
one's
see
definitely
that
the
one.
best,
I mean,
whatever
this
that
is
one is.
unbelievable, and like the detail and the icons, it's very very impressive. So we'll wait and see. But anyway, Haiku passed the new OS one shot benchmark. The other one I looked at was its ability to just like do the simultaneous tool calling. And that's where it'll go off and call like multiple tools at once. In this case, just because I had my local set up, I didn't have that many MCPs installed, so Google was its only option. But it still called Google multiple times, looking at various angles around the AI news in general. It was very, very fast. It formats things really nicely as well. I even got it to create a document. It created a document and was able to put the sources in the format I wanted. So it's like I'm really impressed. I'm going to just daily drive it for as long as I can possibly stand outside of
Yeah, me
probably
too.
harder problems.
So to give you an example of what I was doing, I was testing all the Microsoft MCPs. So like SharePoint, Outlook, Calendar, those kind of things, Planner and to-dos and stuff like that. And what I do is I upload a file to my OneDrive, and then I say, can you download that file and then email it to me with a sort of a summary? And then what it is, it's my electricity bill. And then the AI sort of admonishes me for how much money I spend on electricity and gives me all these analogies and like big red letters, like you need to do something about this. And Haiku did it just as well as the other models. It was great. And it did it all with simultaneous tool calls as well.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like when you're dealing with that kind of important use cases, like getting critiqued on how much electricity you use, it's great. Like it works.
Yeah.
It works tremendously well. So I also have been playing around with VO 3.1. Last week we got Sora and Sora 2 Pro, and those models, I feel like, and I'm sure maybe, put your hate in the comments below if you disagree, but I think they sort of got somewhat revealed for what they were when they released the API without the watermarking and without the tune of like the sort of TikTok hilarious video, which I'm not discounting at all. I actually think those videos were really good until the copyright restrictions hit. And so then I just started using it against VO3, which I tried to show on last week's show, but unfortunately, OpenAI's new agent
Your
SDK.
computer like melted down or blew up or something,
Yeah,
right?
it fully crashed my computer. So I wasn't able to show you, but yeah, the comparisons were pretty meh. Like the like VO3 in general, even though it's a little bit pricier, but not much, just far outperformed it. So Google, of course, pushed out VO 3.1. And you might think, oh, it's just a slight improvement. But no. So there's some new features. And the new features are now you can have a start and end frame. So you can give it where you want it to start, where you want it to end, and it'll like fill in the bits. And so I was able to produce a video, which I showed you earlier, of I gave it two images, me with sunglasses on, sitting at this exact desk, and then without. And I asked it to create a video where I like put the glasses on. So here's the
This
video.
is VO 3.1 running on Sim Theory with first and last frame. This is VO 3.
So you can see it does pretty well. This is keep in mind, this is the lower quality model like version of it because it's cheaper and I'm cheap. But yeah, so it goes from the first frame to the last frame, and the last frame obviously was me putting on my sunglasses. So it's not perfect yet, but you can see how this could be used for online advertising or just like e-commerce websites where it retains the product really
Yeah, and I
consistently.
think that the only weaknesses for me are things like your teeth look a bit weird and just some of the stuff around the talking, but you can tell that they'll solve those problems in no time. The ability to keep your character, the ability for it to know how to transition to the last frame is incredible. Like it's a really major advancement. You've got so much more control over what happens in there now.
So then the other thing they added, which is really cool, is the ability to basically like give it a series of images and join them together as part of a scene. So what I did was I uploaded my photo, like just my face, and I used the image tool first of all with character reference to create an image of me in an astronaut suit on Mars, right? So you can see that on the screen now if you watch. And then I also asked it to create 2 more images, a cinematic image. So you want to look closely at these, a cinematic image of the Mars landscape, and then an alien. And I thought, there's no way this is going to work. And then I said, okay, now use all 3 images for reference to video. So reference to video is the skill. I just wanted to be precise in VO3 to make a video where I'm walking along a scene on Mars that looks like the Mars image. Then this alien appears. So it's a terrible prompt. I don't deserve the output I got. And here is what I got. Very cinematic. Here we go. Like, how crazy
so
is
it's
that?
the actual landscape, the same alien, and your face in the spacesuit.
And I mean, like, it's close enough to me that you'd believe it's me, right? Like, I mean, that is just so cool. Once this gets, like, obviously, we talked about this with sort of like longer output and more control and better tooling around it. Like, I would even just say better prompting, better tooling. You could probably put together, like, someone could easily build, I reckon, like a really fun video editor where you could make your own like stories and stuff. Now, in fact,
I mean, it definitely seems like maybe a bit of a marketing problem for Google in respect that, like, if this was OpenAI now, they would have had a keynote speaker, they would have brought everyone out, they would have had, hype everywhere on X and all this sort of stuff. And whereas with VO3, the only reason I even knew it came out is because you told me, because you're into that stuff and you actually tried it, but you don't hear much about it. Like, Google isn't hyping it up the way the others are.
No, I don't think it got a lot of pickup because there was a lot of initial excitement around Sora 2 and that Sora app, but then that's fallen off a cliff. And I think in a way, the sort of consumer of AI is a bit exhausted. Like, there's this like, oh wow, cool, but the wows are getting less and less. Even though I think the models are improving, I think people are just getting so used to the technology now and so used to what it can do. Nothing really shocks or surprises them anymore, and therefore, people either are pretty dismissive of it, or the reality, which I think is probably closer, is a lot of these tools just aren't ready for prime time yet. Like, they're just simply not good enough for any commercial, or not any, I shouldn't say any commercial use, but like obvious commercial uses. So you just dismiss them and move on. But if you think about stitching this stuff together, like with 11 Labs training your own voice, like the pro training voice version, being able to produce audio of different characters in a video, putting yourself or just specific characters in a video, and then compiling that, like, you could do it. Like, you definitely could build this stuff. And I'm so tempted to upgrade Video Maker to be able to do like AI video film clips and like actual like short films and stuff. But the problem then comes to, and this is again another problem with these video models, is they're just too expensive. Like, this video cost me $4 US, $4.
Yeah.
Am I really going to play this to laugh?
And I
with my
definitely
friends?
think, like, when you think about the advertising industry, like making short ads, making individual clips and stuff, the value probably is there for certain people depending on what they're doing, but it's not there for like what we want to do, which is just muck around with it and experiment with it, because you're going to need some sort of return in order to justify spending $4 for 10 seconds or whatever it is.
But
and that's even if you get it right the first time.
This is the problem for developers as well, right? Is the only way you can figure out if there's utility in these applications, especially as like an indie developer, is to play around with them. Or even as an end user, like if you've got a subscription to SimTheory and you've got Veo and Sora and these audio tools, and you're thinking like, maybe I could, play around with these to get an idea if they would have practical utility for something in my business. Like, you really would have to spend like a couple of $100 like I do each time when I'm working on them. And I think it makes them inaccessible. And to me, maybe it's already in place, but I think Google or OpenAI should have some sort of like video developer allocation where they're giving away credits and sort of taking their hit, or a loss leader on this stuff, so that devs can afford to play around with it. Because honestly, if I was doing this for longer, to build that video maker, I think I spent like $250 USD to build that. Now, if I had to keep iterating on that, day after day after day. Like that becomes very inaccessible very quickly.
I wonder if they could just have a mode that just has like a heavy watermark across the top, and so you can have it in development mode to work with it, get an idea of what you want to get to. Then if you want to publish it, then you've got to pay. I understand then they'd be taking the loss, but to get the adoption there and get your model being the one that everyone wants to use, it might be an idea.
The fact they charge so much says to me that they're probably already making a loss, Like I wouldn't be surprised if they lose money on each generation OpenAI definitely was with Sora and still is. And so it's like, how long can they keep like just absolutely pissing away cash on this stuff? So I think, but to the Haiku thing, I think the optimization, as you said, the speed and efficiency of these things has never been more important, because if they can get them down, then a lot of these use cases start to become a reality. Like maybe it's like, we don't need better tools. We need you to work on optimization. Like, please.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. Like you were asking, what would we want in a Gemini 3? And it's like cheapness and speed. Because if you've got those things, the models are already very, very capable. And I think some people are artificially constraining their use cases or constraining the adoption of the models because it's too expensive. So if you think about like the mass rollout of quality agentic systems, the only way that's going to be possible is with affordable models, which means that when people are doing the larger scale outs, they probably are using something more like a Haiku or a Flash, because you just can't use a frontier model for that stuff. It's just not, the payback isn't there. So therefore, I really feel like in some ways those models are better because of that trade-off.
Yeah, and I increasingly think they're getting to a point, at least the optimized models, and I don't want to speak too soon about Haiku, because I tried to use, after we talked about it, the new Gemini Flash tune, because it was so much better at tool calling. But I just got the sense after a while, I'm like, oh, this thing's just way too dumb and just doesn't interpret my dumb prompting. Like if you put detailed prompts in, I'm sure it would be really performant, but I'm lazy and I do bad prompting. So I rely on the more intelligent models to basically fix it for me. And so after a while, I'm like, there's no way I can stick with this. So I'm really interested with Haiku. If I can stick with it, then that starts to change the equation a little bit. But again, still, it's not, I mean, it's cheap, but when you can access GPT-5 for 50 cents more per million input, it's like, you really want it to be fast and pretty good at tool calling. Otherwise, why would you switch?
We added some other models during the week as well, most notably GLM 4.6. So everyone would be familiar with GLM 4.5, which was the previous one we had. Now we have GLM 4.6. It was really popular in the open source communities. A lot of people liked it. I've used it a little bit. It also seems a bit Haiku-esque in the sense that it's cheap. It also is really good at tool calling and just seems like an all-rounder in terms of like a model. I feel like if you were going to host your own model, if you were going to fine-tune a model, GLM 4.6 is a pretty good starting point.
Do you know, and someone said in the community this week, and I really agree with them, that while I think the models are improving, they're equally becoming so commoditized. But the tunes of them have such different strengths and weaknesses that, if they were truly commoditized, you would just pick like the cheapest, fastest model, right, and just stick with it. But you are still getting performance gains in areas where they seem to focus on in that particular model release. So I think with the Sonnet and the Haiku 4.5 series, it's really just about maximizing agentic tasks. And a lot of that work was around the Claude Code product, which I think they're making an absolute killing from. So that's why they're optimizing the models in that direction. So I do think that there is a lot of commoditization going on, but it's brilliant to be the consumer in this case of the models, because you have lots of options, lots of choice, and you can really now lean into the models with the different strengths and weaknesses once you're familiar with them. And like, it's not going to like burn you in price, unless of course you want GPT-5 Pro.
Yeah, that one kills them all. But also I think it means you can really build in anticipation that the frontier models will eventually become the cheaper ones, and you can just rely on the fact that you're going to get that next gen model in there for a better price pretty soon. Like it doesn't have to be like a permanent economic equation that makes you lose, because at some point it's going to work.
Yeah, and they keep getting better, and the price sort of keeps coming down. Not always, but I think.
Well, I mean, the only issue is when they're deprecating the old ones, so you have to switch to the new ones and therefore pay the higher price.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you'd be able to run the very best model as fast as possible locally on your computer, so you're totally in control and it's super fast inference. But I don't know. That day, I think, is a ways off.
And there's no money in that for anyone.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. So there's no incentive to do it. Okay, so big news from OpenAI, huge news. What's the thing they always say? Insane news. Sam Altman posted this.
It would be funny, sorry, but if a leader of a company actually was insane and they did stuff that like wasn't in the company's or their best interests, and like you're like, that guy's actually insane. He deleted all the files on their corporate server, and then he burnt down the building, and then he yelled at people on the streets.
Yeah,
like,
I think then it would
insane.
actually warrant insane. But anyway, so Sam Altman did something insane. We made ChatGPT pretty restrictive to make sure we were being careful with mental health issues. Sure. We realized this made it less useful, enjoyable to many users who had no mental health problems. But given the seriousness of the issue, we wanted to get this right. Now that we have been able to mitigate the serious mental health issues and have new tools, we are going to be able to safely relax the restrictions in most cases. First of all, don't know what he's talking about. In a few weeks, we plan to put out a new version of ChatGPT that allows people to have a personality that behaves more like what people liked about 4.0. We hope you will like it better. If you want your ChatGPT to respond in a very human-like way or use a ton of emoji or act like a friend, ChatGPT should do it, but only if you want it, not because we are usage maxing. In December, as we roll out age gating, ooh, can't wait, more fully, and as part of our treat adult users like adults principle, we will allow even more like Erotica for verified adults. Now, this sent everyone into an absolute spin. OpenAI getting into the porn business.
So firstly, comparing anything to GPT 4.0, that is by far the worst model they ever released. It was a piece of crap. So I don't know why people are out there pining to get that back. And I agree, the GPT models definitely don't adopt the personality to the level of some of the other models. But I would say at this point, aren't we just kind of used to the restrictions? Like, yeah, it's not going to help you make a pipe bomb, and it's not going to like help you like plan to murder someone, or those kind of things. It's going to refuse those. But all the models kind of do that, right? Like I think everyone's over that stuff. Like in the early days, I really wanted an uncensored model just to see what the thing would come up with. But I don't really get it now. Like that many people really, like, is there really that much demand from their customer base for porn? Like, surely they've got more noble goals than that.
Well, there was some good memes around this. There was the meme with the two buttons and the sweaty astronaut, cure cancer or erotica, and the fingers trying to decide between which one. But I don't know. Like, I don't want to criticize him too heavily here, because I think what he's trying to say, but maybe framed it very poorly, is like, we heard that you want more control over the models and you feel like you have this like personal relationship with them. We don't really want to have too much control over the personality, so we're going to give you tools to have control. I think great. Why not? Like, and I think 4.0 from a consumer sort of chatbot point of view, people did really like. I think we just look at it from a like actually doing real work. So I think,
but isn't the real thing here the age check, as in, i.e., we are going to hard ID every single person on the platform with like, passports and face scans and stuff like that?
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because they introduced this into the sort of enterprise end, right? So for us to get access to the latest models, they hid this under the guise of, we don't want the Chinese training on our models, because then they might beat the US in AI and, we'll forever be enslaved or something, some weird fantasy there. And so we had to do this. Like, we had to do the whole.
I had to give a blood sample, pee in a cup, send some DNA.
a lot of evidence that we were alive, and we didn't really love it, but we had to do it to get access to like all the models and things. So I, at the time, felt like that was disguising the fact that they just wanted to like verify all their customers. Now, it feels to me here like this treat adult users like adult. I agree with that principle. And I think you should have control over the model to say, like, if I'm interested in this stuff and it's not going to harm anyone and you're an adult in your own time and your own privacy and you want to go do that stuff, I don't care. Like, that's fine by me, whatever. You're not hurting anyone. And I think that's good. That's what we were calling for early on. We were like, treat adults like adults. So I think they're finally somewhat agreeing with that. But the problem I have with it is this verification. And I understand why you need to do it because, like, kids, you don't want them accessing things, or you don't want the chatbot getting all, like, horny with them or whatever. and so it's a tricky situation. So I get why they want to ID, but then you also look at the dark side of that, which is like, what if they get hacked? What if the government gets access to it? And Jason Calacanis tweeted, and I think it's like pretty extreme, but I do think it's pretty sensible about where it could go, is like, the blackmail is going to be fast and furious. Send me a Bitcoin or I'm going to release your late night ChatGPT sessions. Assume someone at OpenAI is reading your prompts and sharing them with their friends. I don't think they're doing this stuff, but it does make you wonder, right?
Yeah, but I mean, that the problem with that statement is it's a bit like saying any system could be hacked. Like, our national airline Qantas, I think, got hacked again this week. Like, they get hacked every other week now. So, like, all my personal stuff's been just distributed over the dark web repeatedly by these big companies. So I think that, yeah, okay, that's like saying any company can be hacked, and probably will be. But the thing that really strikes me about it, and why I just get the wrong vibe from it, is, and I know I don't understand the economics of it, but clearly OpenAI is positioning themselves as like the consumer AI, right? Like, they on one hand will give examples for businesses, but if you look at a lot of their presentations, like the UI stuff we want to talk about soon, it's all like planning a trip, writing a card, doing a presentation for your mid-level white-collar job or whatever, and then watching porn at night, or like chatting to a porn bot. It's like they clearly are going all in on that sort of consumer side, because to me, if anything, businesses actually want control over the restrictions on the model. So for their staff, for example, they don't want to restrict what they can do work-wise, but they do want controls in there to protect the staff members themselves when they're working, and be alerted when the system is being misused and things like that. So if anything, I would have thought that maybe developing those controls more would actually be valuable, rather than going, oh, you know what, screw it, do whatever you want, guys, as long as we get your DNA.
Well, I think, to be fair to them, I think that what they're saying is they're going to allow you to choose as the consumer. And I think if they have that level of control, then you'd think they could deliver it at a business end. But I do find it kind of weird. Like, a couple of weeks ago, it was all about him going on a podcast being like, we just don't want anyone to, commit suicide or whatever. So we're helping guide the model in these areas to stop it, which I think is quite noble. But then the next week it's like, oh, for people without, go wild. Also, there's parental controls, and I just don't see why they have to do this. Like, why is the real question? And there's got to be more to it. There's always an ulterior motive, and it always comes down to money and power with these people. And so I get the impression they're just throwing things, like throwing darts and seeing what sticks. Like, if we can get people more addicted to this thing,
the
great.
question also then becomes, and I know this is probably already possible and already happening, but what happens when in a crime or something, the government subpoenas OpenAI and says, I want all this person's chat logs? Like, that Calacanis line isn't that far-fetched when it comes to like the court's power to compel them to hand over people's chat sessions.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to get it, and they hand over internet sessions, so I don't see how it's any different. But yeah. But yeah, I'm interested in what listeners think. Like, if you want to leave a comment below, like, are you pro the Erotica stuff? Are you you don't really want to put your name to that. Don't say that. Just say like, oh, I don't want age restrictions or something. We can have a safe word. But anyway, the memes have been great. So regardless of all this and the controversy that I'm sure they didn't mean it to blow up this much, the memes have been excellent. Let me show you one of them. It is Sam Altman as porn star Bonnie Blue holding up a sign 1,000. She held up this sign, so I'll let you figure out what that's referring to. But it's Sam Altman's face on her in this particular photo. and it's referencing the Salesforce partnership that was announced with OpenAI this week, and the idea that OpenAI is really just the partnering with literally everyone and anything. And it seems like this has become the strategy for SaaS companies on the like public market when their stock price is like flatlining or in short, like slow decline. And there's been a lot of good commentary around this. So breaking OpenAI to partner with OpenAI to help fund OpenAI. OpenAI up 90%. There's another one, the like say the line Bart meme. Say the line Bart, we're partnering with OpenAI, and then everyone cheers. So yeah, it's interesting. And then another one, in case of emergency, break the glass, and the glass is OpenAI partnership. So there's two ways to look at this, I think. There's the Salesforce example, like quite literally just waving the white flag to these guys and saying like, take our user interactions into ChatGPT. That's fine. Like, have access to Slack. That's also fine. And I think there's that part of it. And then there's the other part, which is any company that doesn't really have an announcement in this sort of AI world where the only growth in the US economy is AI. If they want to grow now, their stock price, they just announce any partnership, even if nothing ever happens around AI.
What I would really want to know with Salesforce is all their Einstein AI stuff that they had whole events about and like tried to sell people on and stuff. What was it? Like, what was actually underneath it? What did it do? Was it just like a mechanical Turk with just people just like rapidly typing in the background? But really, they're just good at selling stuff. They don't actually really have anything to sell. They just sell ideas and concepts and words, and then people pay millions of dollars for them. It's kind of crazy. But I'd be pretty mad if I had paid for that thing and then they're like, oh, you know what? We'll just use OpenAI. It's better.
Yeah, and they had didn't they have an Einstein model too? Like an actual, like they were putting out a lot of open source models, and clearly they just concede they just are never going to get there. So they did the weird thing, which is like we're partnering with OpenAI, but we're also partnering with Anthropic for certain use cases, like anything.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, anything sort of semi-serious.
Anything that needs to work.
Yeah, for anything that requires tool calling, we're partnering with Anthropic. But yeah, so there's like integrations across platforms. And the main reason I wanted to bring this up is not to like read their press release, but just to show how quickly they conceded. And I'm like, is this a sign of things to come? Like all these companies conceding the sort of user interaction with their tool? Because we predicted this. We're like, everyone's just going to want to operate through their platform of choice, whether it's like Claude or ChatGPT or a SIM theory or whatever it is, like your own custom internal like chat thing. That's the frame that you'll eventually operate all this software through. And I think the MCP UI, while I'm not that certain that is it, I'm pretty sure that this is the way forward, especially being able to just get so much more done. And so they've said this Agentforce 360 apps, like what is that name, is going to be available in this ChatGPT apps program. You'll have access to like CRM data, Tableau, all this kind of stuff. Now, interestingly, there's already MCPs for all of this stuff. So I'm assuming maybe they'll just like take them and rewrite them a little bit.
They're not MCPs by them though. It's just by like enthusiasts or whatever, right?
Yeah, sure. But I don't think it's that
They're
new.
all awful. That's the problem. Like, you almost need an officially supported one because their software is so complicated to actually get it working. And my big fear is that these big partnerships are going to lead to this walled garden effect where it's like, yeah, we have these open protocol MCP, but it's only when there's elite partnerships involved that people can actually use those MCPs. And I don't know that that's going to happen, but I worry that these top level partnerships will lead to that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it could be especially problematic for organizations where they do want to benefit from the MCP, but then they can't use it in their own system. Like if they're building an agentic system, they might want to rely on the Salesforce MCP, but they can't. And I think this could be a problem. And it could, look, Salesforce and all these guys will definitely hold all of your data that you pay to store in their systems hostage. There's no doubt in my mind. Like this is 100% going to be the strategy.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder if a lot of companies are sitting back contemplating, like, do we have a fully open MCP, which would be the best? Or are we going to protect the data, like you say, protect the user's data from themselves, so we still own it and we still have control over it. Like, because I reckon they really are thinking that through right now. Like,
They
does
all.
having
I
the
mean,
MCP,
we said this last week or the week before.
Yeah.
Like we know they are. Like we've talked to some of these people. Like they're all
yeah,
struggling.
no, I know. I just didn't want to like name names, but I know that we know that there's some top level companies exactly contemplating this thing.
Yeah, and so it's like, do you go fully open and just like sort of those open, like, you know, in the early days of, you know, everyone had to have an API, and then slowly there was pullback where people realized, oh, like switching costs are so low because you can just suck out all the data.
Yeah.
I think this is the interesting path we face here in like a SaaS world is the first thing, like, okay, I'm in ChatGPT, I'm using Salesforce, I'm interacting with it, like we've said before, and then like, okay, now they have a database. Now they have better UI. Now why do I need Salesforce? Like that's definitely the that
Well, not to
Sherlocking
mention that
that
the
Apple
AI,
does.
clearly, I mean, you just saw it make a Mac operating system. The thing could literally just infer how the app works on the back end as it goes. Like, as it
Yeah.
calls the tools, it could gradually just patch that back end, then like build the back end as it goes. And then once it's got all the data, it's replicated your app. Like, it would be very straightforward. And we've talked about this before, but copying SaaS apps, especially if you had access to the data like that, would be very easy now. Like in a sort of automated, ongoing fashion.
But herein lies the problem. If you go and build your app for this new ChatGPT app store that I assume will eventually come, which I don't know, it's probably still a good strategy in the short term for distribution, but like, you know, well, actually, on that distribution front, are people really going to go into ChatGPT and go, oh, like, Salesforce is in here, great, I'm going to pick that as my CRM? Like, I'm not so sure for those established markets. Maybe like newer markets potentially, but what I think what's going to happen is they're going to look at like the top 5 used apps or top 10. Then they're going to go clone them all and just bake them into ChatGPT. I mean, it's just so obvious.
Well, they've done it before, right? They took a lot of early AI startups' ideas and just took them, like cloned them wholesale.
Yeah, and look, if I was them, I'd do the same thing. I'd get my app store going. I'd figure out like what makes the most money, what areas should we focus on, and then I would lean in heavily. And so now, like, you think, say you're like a productivity company or startup or CRM or whatever it is, you're thinking, well, do I lean into this or do I stay out? And if I stay out, are my customers not going to be happy because they want access to their data and they want me to have an app? And maybe they'll churn as a result of me not having an app. Or do I lean into it really heavily?
I think that's going to become very common. People asking their SaaS providers, do you have an MCP? No, I'm going to someone else who does because I really need that in order to, for that's how I work now.
Well, like, I would. That's the thing. Like, I look at the inverse of this problem, like being on the consumer or like the business user side, and I'm like, I would 100% leave the SaaS app to go to another one that did have a really good MCP. Like, look at Stripe. I think that's a pretty good example. They have nailed the MCP experience. Like, it can do everything. The only thing it can't do is like hard delete stuff, but I don't know if I really even want it to be able to do that. So I'm fine with that. Like, I'm happy to have to log in and do all that stuff. But in terms
if you were using a different like Square or something like that now, you probably would consider switching for that, right? Like, it can really help a business.
Well, I would say the companies like, you know, Chargebee and Recurly and like all these like layers on top of the payment layer that are somewhat, I guess, somewhat competitive with Stripe. Well, somewhat directly, but somewhat indirectly at times. I think they're the ones that are going to be crunched by this, because if you're on one of them, you're like, well, you know, Stripe has this great MCP and like I don't really need that layer anymore because the AI can help me figure that stuff out.
What value does the app add? Is the value add really just it's a CRUD app with a database and a few processes, right? Like, if that's what your business does, I'd be seriously worried right now, like Salesforce, for example. Whereas you look at a company like Twilio, who provides, you know, phone infrastructure, SMS infrastructure, things like that. I reckon if anything, those companies will become more valuable because they will be the end, you know, access to the real world for MCPs and things like that. Like, I actually think it enhances their business quite a lot, whereas it has the power to completely destroy something like a Recurly or Salesforce, because really all their whole value add is literally just a database with some code on top of it.
I mean, to be fair, there's like a ton of business logic built into these applications, and Salesforce in particular, like it's really just a GUI for staff on top of an SQL database. I think it's far more at risk, long term, like not short term, because like there's so many like security protocols. The enterprise moves so slowly. But yeah, for new startups, like why would you bother if you could have a database within your AI workspace?
Well, when you see that
zero
line
reason.
item on your bill, like, 20 grand or 30 grand or whatever it is, you're just like, well, hang on, I can get most of this just working with an agent. Like you'd start to wonder, like, do I actually want this long term?
Well, I mean, I called this on the support platforms as well, like Help Scout, Zendesk. I mean, even though we use Help Scout, it's like all we really need is an MCP that connects to a shared inbox, and has a database where you like allocate this email ID from that inbox or subject line or whatever to a particular agent, which is linked to the, say in sim theory, like the user ID, and like all of a sudden, the app is pointless. Like, because you could just be like, show me the new tickets, and you maybe not even do that. Maybe you just have a home screen where it shows them. And then you're like, okay, now go and answer them all, and then you review them, and then there's somewhat of a process built around that. Like,
and the crucial factor here that we spoke about briefly last week is that MCP UI protocol being added to MCP. The idea being that an MCP can specify how you display different UI elements for input and output in order to interact with it. And if you add those elements, then your idea there of having a automatically generated Help Scout dashboard is perfectly possible. You simply add that to its resources in the MCP, and then you've got that. And so a lot of these applications actually will be able to be replicated in whichever MCP client you're using, as long as they support the protocol. So it's not like it's even one that will necessarily win here, assuming they're actually open.
But this is why I'm bullish on these apps not being powerful for existing startups. I'm bullish on them being powerful for new startups. And the reason being is like, if you came at this and said, I'm going to build the universal MCP for support, just customer support, right?
Yeah.
And you just have a database that can't be seen, really nice integrated UI elements, and good, like all the user roles, like everything baked in, but it's all connected to like the ChatGPT user or the users of the MCP. All of a sudden, you're like, well, I can just buy my software through this store, and maybe I pay a few extra bucks per user a month, but like it's all integrated, it's all there. It's how the new sort of AI first worker wants to work.
Yeah, and I strongly agree with you there that there's a real need for like an MCP first approach. Like as in, we didn't just like wrap an MCP around an existing API, because it doesn't necessarily work in that way. You see a lot of the MCP struggle where, like Outlook, for example, if you want to email someone, it's got like, oh, I'll just look up the contact. Okay, now I've found the contact. Now I'll draft the email. Now I'll send the email. So it's doing a lot of these sort of they are necessary because it needs to do them, but like, in my opinion, unnecessary steps, whereas a built for purpose MCP could actually realize use cases and have the tools as use cases rather than being just a disjointed set of tools that might be automated in another app consuming the API normally, if you know what I mean. So I think that this idea of dedicated paid MCPs, like you say, that are just experts in their area, will really take off. And I think we deserve full credit when that happens. Some of the profits.
But yeah, so the other thing though I would say is, maybe that's the shorter term. But then the next step you can imagine is an enterprise, like a big enterprise is like, okay, cool. We can go and like pay for all these disparate apps that we have no control over. When we know our own business better than anyone, we might have all of our data stored in a data warehouse where we we know the data structure, we're fully aware of it. So it's like, okay, well, why do I need any of this? Like, I'll just build my own internal MCPs, hire like a couple of people internally to maintain them, and now I can replace like solution after solution. I can drive down my IT spend completely. And because it's powered by AI, it's like it doesn't really matter. As long as the core platform's got, the security and the permissions and stuff baked in.
Yeah.
Why
Well, it
wouldn't
does. The
you?
protocol does. That's the thing. Like if you build an MCP for your company, you can already do it with the OAuth, right? So you've got that level of security there, which is strong. You can host it yourself over HTTPS. You can IP restrict it to just the ones that the clients you want to allow, and you've got enterprise level security straight away. Like it really isn't that hard. Not to mention, as you say, think about how many organizations now would be syncing their internal databases and systems off to like a Snowflake or Amazon S3, and then they have something that reads that in and maps it into Tableau or some other API and some other system, and they've got all this stuff just to get access to their things, and they can just cut all of that out of the picture, have an MCP for their company, and then just use it in their favorite, aka SIM theory, client, MCP client. And I think that is going to become really common. And the other thing is, I really feel like it couldn't be emphasized enough that if you do it in the right way, it's actually a lot more trustworthy than all of these other systems you have going on already, or at least the same. Like, so I really feel like it is the future of interacting with big company data.
It also stops the problem of like where you've got all this disparate data and different systems where you're sort of thinking, oh, one day we'll clean that up. And you never will. Like the truth, come on, like never. So it's like if you just build endpoints, and it can be one MCP, like that's what we have, where it's just one MCP with the tool calls, and the tool calls just know where to go fetch it from securely. Then you start to think about that new level of customization of software here, where it's like it's customized to how your business works, like the actual process that you're running to handle customers or whatever it may be. And then that starts to become agentic. It has direct access to systems. It can make changes on behalf, and then the humans just sort of approving. Like, I think this is so much bigger than people realize right now. Like this might be bigger than all of software as a service and all of the app store and all of that stuff combined. Like, I think it could be far in excess. And
especially because the models can already do this. It's really just giving them access to what they need. And like to the point where not only can they do it, once you've got your base MCP in place, you can point it at your database or your schema or whatever the system you're using and going, hey, could you add, like, what useful tools could you add in here that would help me get these jobs done? And it's like, here they are, sir, and put out all the code. And you add that to your MCP. Now you've improved the amount of tools you've got. And I think the next step that we're both looking at is, okay, now we've got the tool set. We need to combine those into skills. And what we mean by skills is like procedures, like a series of, when this happens, this is the procedure you follow. Then you start to build up a bank of those. And then it's a matter of time before the agency gets good enough where you can start to have a role. And the role is performing these tasks when these things happen. So when this event happens, perform this procedure or these series of procedures. When this happens, you need to seek approval and then perform the procedure or whatever it is. And I think that this is going to be the future of how businesses work. And so this idea of agency is going to come in a sort of iterative fashion. Like we're going to get there gradually. It's not just going to be one glorious day where it's AGI and it can do everything. It's going to be a gradual process where, just like now, we're constantly typing everything into an AI terminal to make decisions and do things. It's going to be, holy, wow, I've got like 20 of these things running and it's basically running my whole business. Like it's going to be like that kind of thing.
Yeah, but this is where if you're spending a lot of time using it all the time or thinking about where it will go, but also using it and trying to get there, it's a lot more obvious than what companies are necessarily presenting as the vision. And I think this is why there's this disconnect between, people in a business going, oh, it's not even that good, it's not that helpful, versus what people like us might see. So let me illustrate that here. So as part of the Salesforce announcement, they have this like apps and agents section, and they've got like Google Agent Space, Claude, Dropbox for some reason, like who knows why, Notion, of course, and Perplexity, Tableau, all that sort of stuff. But I get it. It's sort of showing this app screen, and in their world, they see ChatGPT and Claude as like an app. And then the example is, hey, ChatGPT, can you turn my Q4 deck from Google Drive into a post for leadership? Use bullet points to highlight what's important. And cool. But wouldn't it be better if you showed him like coordinating, like, list all of the support tickets, or list all of our current sales opportunities and figure out how I can progress those deals, or I don't know, more like real use cases. And then that sort of takes me all the way back to what was presented at the Dev Day, which I wanted to touch on again. Like, we've got the Booking.com app, the Canva app, the Coursera app. And these are just so...
like the future isn't apps. We already have apps.
We have
it's
apps.
not helpful. It's like, use your apps 10% more efficiently. Like browsing Booking.com with an AI, like going, wouldn't it be great to go to Chicago this weekend? Like, it's just not helpful.
And this is what I don't get. Like, I get why they're doing it, because people probably build all sorts of cool things and backends. And I know I'm slightly contradicting myself earlier when I said, like, there's a big opportunity here to build like a database and build some of these startups from the ground up. Like, if you take Zendesk and say, okay, I'm just going to build an MCP that just lives in, say, ChatGPT, and that's all I'm going to do. I do fundamentally think that's a big opportunity, right? But then if you think about what these MCPs are capable of, which is agentic, like real work, not necessarily like off in the background, having full agency, but having the human in the loop, where it can say, okay, I'm going to call this tool, and I'm going to call this tool, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that. Like, this whole apps SDK just completely goes against it. It also silos the apps to single use. Like, you've got to click plus and pick which one you want to use. Like, that is not a good workflow for productivity. Like, it's not helpful.
They're almost diminishing, how good their models actually are by forcing you to choose.
There is not a single use case I can think of right now, including the support one I bang on about, email I bang on about, like all of these different things I use MCPs for every single day right now, where I benefit from having to force select a single MCP, unless I'm like producing maybe a video or image where I'm like, hey, I definitely want to use VO 3.1.
Well, remember, we actually originally had that skills concept in sim theory because originally the models weren't great at tool calling. So if you gave them, say, Google search, which was, there weren't much around in those days, but those days, like a few months ago. But you had Google search, right? So no matter what you asked the bloody thing, it would use Google search. It's like, hey, how are you today? I'll just search Google to see how I am today, that kind of thing. So it was super annoying, and we're like, this is useless. What we'll do is we'll force people to select which tool they want to use, and that way it won't accidentally call things and waste their time and be slow and all that sort of stuff. But then they made the models better, and they made them a lot better at tool calling and knowing when to do it, and then you could make better tool descriptions where the AI would follow rules about when it calls tools or multiple tools and things like that. That's a solved problem, and yet they've gone backwards in terms of the way they're getting people to interact with it.
And that brings me back to the original point, why I feel like a lot of this is just sucking in the user interfaces and the use cases into ChatGPT so they can see which performs the best and then think about future applications of their own tech. Like, it doesn't, maybe it's a step thing. Like, next year we get like multi-app calls, but then again, like, the UI starts to become less important. And then the further confusion is, Greg Brockman, right?
I'm Greg Brockman.
You got the sound effect.
The sound effect did play. You couldn't hear it, but
I've been wanting that for ages.
It did play. So Greg Brockman tweeted, ChatGPT apps are very powerful and can now include full-fledged applications. So cool. Let's look at what he was referring to. Someone running Doom in that portal, and they're like, hey, ChatGPT, let's play Doom, and it like loads Doom through some Next.js plugin.
Wow, super useful.
But why? I don't understand why he would call this out. Why? What am I missing? Like,
I think you're right. Like, you've said it on previous episodes. I think these guys don't actually use it day to day. I think they use it for tweets and stuff because, yeah, that's cool and stuff. It's a nice novelty, but people were done playing with that like 6 months ago. Everyone's doing real work now. They're not mucking around being like, oh, cool, I can make a salt lamp website like you do all the time. It's like, yeah, we know it can do that, but like I don't need to do that. Like I don't need to make Doom again. I've got real work to do. And so I think, yeah, I'm a bit confused by the fact that they're just so misguided with those use cases when we know it's capable of so much more. It's weird and doesn't make sense.
But then here's another example. So this guy posted an app I guess he's working on, and it's like he calls it like running generator, right? So he goes in and says like, find me a running, I think it's like, I want to go for a lunchtime run on Montgomery Street. Where should I go? So, okay, fair enough. Play the video and it's like, it finds 2 routes, I think maybe on Strava. Yeah, on Strava. And then it says add to Strava. That's kind of cool, but like, are you really going to, at lunch, in your workplace, be like, I know, I'll go to ChatGPT, not Strava on my phone, which is way more accessible and already has this feature on the home screen. And
this is what I was going to say. The whole trade-off with AI, I think even now, even for me, even with tool calling done in the proper way, is between, do I just open Gmail or do I ask my assistant to read my emails and do something with it? And most of the time, I would still probably go to Gmail right now, right? Because it's an app built for that purpose. Like I can just go in there, I'm used to it, whatever. I'm not going to like do like interactive steps with Gmail in an AI console. It's not helpful. What it is helpful at is, say, gathering hundreds of pages of research, preparing an incredible sales email or an incredible report, then sending the email and attaching to it. It's useful in a session. It's useful in a mass context. It's useful in the context of having worked with maybe 20 other MCPs or something. It's not useful as a bespoke targeted thing where I'm just asking it to do crap for me that I can do. Canva's another great example. Canva's really easy to use. You can go into Canva and make a presentation easily. If you want an AI to generate it, they've got that. I don't need to go into ChatGPT and ask it the same question when there's this other thing there. And now, both of us have the vision that people aren't going to go into these point solution apps in the long run. But I don't think the alternative is going to be go into like a chat box and then just enable that app and then also have a UI that I could have had in the other app, but better to do that. I just don't really see
it doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't compute for me. Like I'm like, am I missing something? Am I just going to be way wrong here?
It has all the hallmarks to me of a company that just it doesn't do web development. Like they just don't have experience in it, and it's like they're discovering everything for the first time. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? And then like, okay, go do that, and then they announce it and launch it without ever actually thinking about how it's going to be used by people in a practical way.
Maybe. I just think it's like small teams trying stuff, and occasionally they launch those things that they've tried, very reminiscent of early Google. And with Google, it was like the one-trick pony was they were really good at search. And the one-trick pony of ChatGPT is like it's really fast and accessible, and it's just there, and you're like, oh, I'll just go to Chat.
And I think brand category domination.
But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll be proven wrong and people will like these apps. My prediction is people will install a few, barely use them, and then the thing will die unless they change it. And as we both know, the big benefit, as you say, with MCPs is gathering context and then taking that action with all the context. And to do that context gathering, you need multiple tools, you need simultaneous calls for speed, and you need those agentic capabilities in the model.
And like I'm seeing people doing custom MCPs where it's doing things like quoting for their industry, or it's, making precise measurements and things like that based on specifications, like things that can't easily be done in another system. But most importantly, the usefulness of it comes when it's in combination with other things. On its own, of course, you can just have that tool, but it's the combination of the MCPs and the AI's ability to know what to do right? Without you having to figure it out. And B, take complex pieces of data and map them into the protocol or the schema of the other app's function calls. Like if it can gather all the information, but most importantly, take that information and feed it into the next step in the chain, that is where you get the value. That's what saves you time. That's what actually gives you power and leverage. It's not just being able to basically manually call an API through plain English. It's just that's not the useful bit.
I mean, the only counterpoint I would make to this is maybe the play here is sort of getting the user, like we said earlier, to nudge it and say my end goal here is a Canva presentation. So I select the Canva app, then ask it hey, go off and research and do all this stuff to get to this endpoint, which is my presentation. But I guess even then, right, I want control over which MCPs it can access at any given point, but I can only select one. So then it's it's going to go off and consult whatever it wants to in terms of researching, and you have no fine-grained control over that. So
I also think I don't know about you, but when I'm working at my most productively with AI, I get in a long session where we build up this massive shared context. We've already produced artifacts and things that go along with that.
Lots of context.
And I'm like,
foreplay.
You know what? Pardon?
I said lots of context foreplay. It goes with the theme of the episode.
Exactly. Foreplay before I get to the erotica at the end. And then I'm like, all right, let's make a picture that will break these censorship filters right down. But it's kind of true in the sense that I'm like, well, just one more thing. Hey, let's be bold here. What if we did this now? What if we actually added a new module to do this? Or now that we've done this, I want to do this again. Just to give you a concrete example, I've made an MCP for, say, Microsoft To-Dos. I'm like, all right, well, let's take on Microsoft Planner now. You know the procedure. You know everything we've done. Here's the input information you need. Bang, make the whole thing. And because it's got all that, it's now more efficient at that task. And I think this is where we'll get to training skills and stuff later, because you can do that process once, bottle it, and then use that multiple times. But now it's still possible. You've just got to get there manually. And I think that paradigm of working just negates all of that benefit. And it just seems crazy to me that the guys who started this whole thing don't get that.
But they didn't.
They
didn't. To be fair, Anthropic is the MCP people, and they have they handle it verbatim how we are, and because it's the right way. And I think ChatGPT's come in and they didn't really invent it. Then they smacked on this UI paradigm, which might be good. I want to try it. We're going to add it next week, so we'll see, and we'll be able to support it.
I'm not opposed to it. There's definitely cases where, like we said, for example, you've produced a draft email, you've produced a draft something, or a receipt or something, and you want to see it in a nice visual way, or you need an approval slip, or okay, well, you've decided to make a video. Do you want to configure some of the parameters? Here's what I have available. You can pick, but it's got to be in context. It's got to be when it makes sense, not every time. It's not you're not building a UI here. The UI components are there for when they're needed.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll see how it evolves. I think it's just there's leadership needed on this to educate people about the benefits of them. And my fear deep down is people are going to go and play around with these and be like, MCPs suck. And quite frankly, they're hard to get right. I feel like only now we've gotten it to a point in SimTheory where it's pretty stable, pretty fast.
Yeah,
we're starting to introduce productivity tools. It's taken us probably 2 months or something to get it right. And so I
still think there's a long way to go, in terms of optimization of the tools, as I said earlier. I think that some of the tools are probably less efficient than they could be and need to be rethought in certain MCPs.
Yeah, but I guess my larger point is, are people just going to get turned off the whole thing because they go in and use the Coursera app and they're like, this isn't I could just ask it these questions anyway. Why do I need Coursera? I can have it in another tab. Anyway, I just wonder if it'll push people away from them instead of reveal the true capabilities of these MCPs, especially in the workplace. I think in the consumer world, they're kind of boring to me, but in the workplace, that's where I think you get the biggest bang for buck.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I personally think there's going to be an explosion in it, but
I agree, and I'm willing to sort of die on that hill. I think it's going to be a big deal. All right. Any final thoughts? Gemini 3 rumors. Claude Haiku 4.5 VO3.
Well, I'm banned from Polymarket, so because I'm Australian, and we're
You
not
gotta get
allowed
a
to gamble unless
Starlink.
it's in a pub on a pokey. Other than that, we're not allowed to do it. And so I don't know. I assume Google's smashing it on there on Polymarket.
But you know what? Like, I'm pretty sure. What's the thing called again? Like, which AI model? Oh, I know.
It's like the one with the poor grammar. Which AI model end of oct or something?
Okay, so let me see if I can still access it because I'm pretty sure I can. It doesn't appear in Google search, which is really interesting. Yeah, so I can still access it on Starlink. So thank you, Elon. I haven't been blocked. Wow. So it's like, which AI model? So let's have a look at the current standings, shall we? Which company has top AI model end of October? Style control on in brackets. What does that mean?
I don't know.
Which company has best AI model end of October? I think that's the one. Although the other one, oh no, volume on this one's 1 million. Okay, so we've got Google. Yeah, I mean, come on. Gemini 3 is going to dominate, and I think they all know it. And we know it. It's gonna dominate. There will. I'm assuming there'll be shortcomings, but I feel like even Gemini 2.5 Pro, it's the best all-round model still today. And if they can knock it out of the park with Gemini 3, then like this is a sure bet. Which is why you're not going to make much money.
No, I've given up on that. I'll stick to making MCPs, I think.
All right. Before we go, we do have a cool coupon code for you. So you can use coupon SIMLINK, 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 as a coupon in Sim Theory if you're upgrading to an annual plan or you're buying an annual plan, the Pro and Max plans or the family plans. You can use that coupon SIMLINK to upgrade. It gives you 30% off the annual plans. We've never done this before. It's a good deal. And it will also give you early access to SIMLINK. So if you want to be able to control, like you have a spare computer and you want to use it as a sort of MCP connection to go and do real world tasks authenticated, either, an old computer stored in your basement, a Raspberry Pi, or your existing computer, you'll be able to very soon. And we're going to start slowly releasing that MCP and getting your feedback on it, picking like the best models to run on it and things like that. One of the things I'll say I love about it, or I think will be very popular, is just when you have to fill in forms. And it sounds really basic, but I swear it's good. So I've
been delaying a security training I have to do. I'm not doing it until I get SIMLINK.
Yeah. So the idea being that you got to fill in this like application for like your kid's soccer or something, which I've complained about on the show before. And, now it can just hijack another computer and go off and do that. And then you can move on. It'll come back and attempt to like complete it as best it can. And then you can pick it up either off that computer directly or control that computer and get it done. So we are excited to bring it back. You can use coupon SIMLINK. The promotional end October 31st. So if you're listening to this a little bit later, I apologize, but October 31st, SIMLINK. If you're an existing user, it'll work. If you're a new user, it'll also work. But it's only on the annual plans, the Pro, Max, and Family Edition. All right, we will see you next week. Thanks again for listening. Goodbye.